and welcome to today's 18 Group webinar on how to make outsourced infrastructure work for trading. My name's Sarah Underwood. I'm an editor here at 18 Group and I'll be moderating the webinar. Our expert speakers today are Jeff Levine, Global Head of Outsourced Trading at Jones Trading, Gerard Walsh, Head of Capital Markets Client Solutions at Northern Trust, and Jeff Metzger, Vice President of Product Management at TNS. I'll ask them all to introduce themselves in just a moment, but first a few hints and tips if you've joined us on the webinar. To the right of your video screen, you'll be able to see a panel. It's a Slido panel. It has a section for polls and a section for questions. We'll be running 3 polls today, so those will show on that panel. Please do place your votes and let us know what you're thinking on the topic we're speaking about. In terms of the questions, please put your questions there in the question panel whenever you'd like to, and we'll answer as many as we can as we go along through the webinar. Okay, enough of me, and I will ask our speakers to introduce themselves, and apologies for formalities, but we have 2 Jeffs today, so I'm going to use their surnames so that we know who we are talking to, and they can find out who I'm asking the questions to. So let's start with Jeff Levine, please. Tell us your interest here.
Thank you very much, Jeff Levine, Global Head of Outsourced Trading over here at Jones Trading. It's a broker-dealer that's been around for 47 years. The outsourced trading business here is 8 years old now, and we're globally covering clients across all asset classes for outsourced trading.
Excellent. Thank you. Gerard, please introduce yourself.
Gerard Walsh, based in London. I work for Northern Trust Capital Markets, and we offer execution solutions in equities, fixed income and derivatives, foreign exchange, and securities financing and lending to clients globally. Thank
you. And Jeff Metzger.
Hi, I'm Jeff number 2. I'm head of product management at TNS for our financial markets division. We're a managed service provider providing hosting, co-location, connectivity, market data for across all asset classes and in every major financial center globally.
Excellent. Thank you, all 3 of you. So let's get started with an audience poll. The question is, what is the state of play on in-house trading infrastructure at your organization? And while you select your answer, let me come first to Jeff Levine to talk a little bit about how he sees the state of play across in-house trading infrastructure.
Over the course of the last 8 years, we've seen quite a bit of demand. I do think our timing of building this business worked really well with the backdrop of the global pandemic. The global pandemic definitely brought outsourcing more to the forefront for a lot of firms that also employed internal trading desks. So where I think we've seen significant growth over the last, call it 7 years that we've been building this business is the engagement to firms that employ an internal trading desk, where they can also benefit from the infrastructure that we have here, our broker coverage, but more importantly, the staffing, where there was issues where if you employed an internal trading desk and that trading desk got sick or you had issues staffing during COVID, a lot of their investors were worried about how do you have business continuity going forward. There's still plenty of demand from launching managers, but I don't think when we initially launched this business that we had any idea that there would be so much significant demand from firms that do staff internally, that want call it the insurance policy for proper business continuity in the event that their trading desk became incapacitated in some format.
Okay, thank you. Gerard, what do you see, particularly let's focus a little bit here on in-house trading infrastructure. How is it?
Thank you. So I think the whole industry is characterized by the need for interoperability. So everybody has to be able to interface to the rest of the financial services ecosystem. And I think that even in an in-house trading capability, an in-house financial services operational capability, outsourcing is very common. Outsourcing of order management systems, BlackRock Aladdin is a really good example of an order management system that firms have chosen to outsource that activity to. It's outsourcing in technology, of compliance structures, and particularly in middle and back office. So I think outsourcing in its most general terms is something that financial services firms have become very comfortable with over the last 20 to 30 years. That's particularly the case in terms of heavyweight operational infrastructure. And I think it's beginning to be the case, exactly as Jeff just said, It's always been the case where firms were looking to start up and they wanted to be quite light in terms of their investment in the resources they put on their own desks. But now I think it's starting to become a relevant part of everybody's target operating model to at least consider the functions and activities that they carry out themselves and what they get partners to do.
Okay, we'll come back to some of those considerations and decisions shortly. But first, please may we see the poll results. And Gerard, perhaps you'd like to comment on these.
Yeah, so I think that the entire industry, I know that poll there is a sample set. I think the entire industry would agree that, we're looking there at nearly 90% of room for improvement. I think that's the case wherever you look, anywhere in the C-suite around the industry, no matter which market you're working in. I think there are examples of and case studies of firms looking to improve, even if they are well known as being very sharp operators in the market. They're always looking for that extra edge, whether that be through new technology, new ways of working, new resources, new capabilities. So I'm not at all surprised to see such a heavyweight skew towards room for improvement.
Okay, let's plan the room for improvement then. And bringing you in, Jeff Metzger, why should financial firms consider outsourcing trading infrastructure?
Yeah, so at TNS, I'm coming at this mainly from an infrastructure provider perspective. I think the easiest benefits that people can point to is cost, both in terms of right-sizing your staff, like Jeff mentioned, but also being able to enjoy the economies of scale of having shared capacity, shared exchange handoffs, shared co-location space. There's an obvious cost benefit. Jeff also mentioned time to market concerns. If you're looking at entering a new market, odds are there's an MSP that already has a full setup and presence in that area. It can take, in good times, it could take months to negotiate new vendor contracts, set up a new space in a new location. That was true even before the supply chain issues we're seeing, which now we're taking those lead times into years. And then there's a vendor management perspective. Instead of dealing with multiple separate different vendors in each location which you operate, you can deal with a single vendor, which makes it simpler, just obviously because you're dealing with point people, but also, as Jeff mentioned, there are business continuity concerns, finding a vendor that has staff already on hand in each region which you want to do business. That obviously can make life easier, but also just help with that continuity perspective. And I think one extra item that gets overlooked sometimes is research and deployment of new technology. Working with a vendor partner or an MSP, as new technologies come up, your vendor can be the one to do the research, let you know what new technologies are available, and also find a way to make it available to you in a oftentimes more cost-effective way than if you've done it yourself. And I think it all comes back to sticking to your core competency, right? Financial firms are good at trading, they're good at participating in financial markets. Focus on your core competencies and let other firms that have core competencies in other areas focus on those.
Okay, that's great. Jeff Levine, would you like to add to that? You mentioned a few elements before.
I would. I think in my last response, I was focused on, I think, business continuity, but the reality is, from the trading side of the business where I come from, there's alpha to be had there. And what we're providing to managers on day one is significant scale, right? Where our team is covered by 300 brokers globally. We staff a desk 24 hours a day, 6 days a week with traders that have been doing this for 25 plus years. And so I think what's important is Jeff number two, as we're calling him, is that you want to be able to right size your staffing internally. And it's hard not to see the benefits of all of the scale and access that an outsourcer can offer you on day one. All right. If you're launching a new fund, you probably have limited commissions, a smaller budget, a limited number of brokers that you truly can engage. We also know that a lot of these managers are focused on small mid-cap securities, and those don't always trade at the 8 brokers you have a relationship with. And so the one thing that we're offering our clients really on day one is the significant access to the marketplace that they wouldn't get from going directly. And then there's a number of different ways that a client can utilize an outsourced firm to either gain attribution with a firm or to access liquidity anonymously, which is a benefit that they don't get going direct to these firms. And so I think it's also important to remind the listeners here that there is quite a bit of alpha that can be delivered on the execution front, and that's where we're focused. And I think that the kind of the frontier is, how do we even add extra edge on execution performance, which we can get into in some of the next questions.
Okay, thank you both very much indeed. And coming back to you, Gerard, what practical approaches can firms take to planning and implementing outsourced infrastructure? My guess would be it's not a big bang approach.
No, generally not. And I think the key to it is for a firm that is contemplating it, you've got to understand what problem it is that you're looking to solve. As the two Jeffs just mentioned, one of the ones that traditionally has been front and center has been around cost. But in actual fact, it may not be cost cutting that you're looking to do, but you're looking to constrain the amount of cost you have to embed into your own organization over time as you grow. Absolutely legitimate that you would look at it from a disaster recovery, business continuity perspective, that you would look to using a partner to access markets in which you don't want a physical presence, or you don't want to have your legal entity create a presence on the local market or in the local exchange. So I think the key questions when people are looking at the practical approaches are, what problem am I trying to solve? What's my optimal target operating model? And what are the functions and activities that I want to perform myself that actually go back to delivering value to the clients who gave me money to manage? And if there's not some tangible, provable link between value that I can deliver back to my underlying investors, then that's probably something that you should consider getting a partner, somebody you can outsource to deliver that activity for you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And Jeff Metzger, what would you add there?
Yeah, I mean, I think Gerard nailed it. I can only really reiterate what he said. I think, what he hit it on the head. It's about looking at the aspects of your infrastructure that actually add value and differentiate your strategy, your performance. Oftentimes that comes back to latency. So it's truly understanding what your latency profile is, and being honest with your vendor partner about that, because most vendors will have multiple offerings at different price points tailored to different latency needs. Whether it's a layer 1 switching service or layer 3 switching service, they'll have a portfolio you can pick from. So it starts by understanding that. Gerard mentioned costs, maybe not cost as an ultimate driver, but there are, could be substantial cost behavior even from the just the infrastructure in the ground. And I would encourage, look at your invoice, look at your exchange invoices, and find the highest line item spends, and just discuss it with your managed service provider. Say, hey, I'm spending this much on this exchange handoff. Can you help me out here? And oftentimes, a lot of this infrastructure can be mutualized, and there are some substantial cost savings to be had.
Okay, thank you. Picking up on this and bringing you back in, Jeff Levine, let's imagine that complete outsourcing is not feasible. What's the potential of hybrid in-house and outsourced vendor trading infrastructure? And where is it best to draw the line?
So from the trading coverage front, it's very simple. To engage an outsourced firm, in many cases, you need a fixed connection, and that's basically it. I think in general, separating the operational middle office and the trading front end is very important. You don't want your outsourcer also handling trade reconciliation, accessing your PB accounts, keeping the separation of, call it church and state, where you have your middle office function, whether it's being handled internally or outsourced, and your trading function and outsourcing that. Is an area where I would give your viewers advice to draw the line. But I would say in terms of not having the full outsourced trading coverage, that's quite common today, right? Where, like, as we started out, we're covering a lot of firms that employ internal trading desks, and the folks that we're working for are the internal traders, and they're utilizing us to get to either the tail of their commission wallet and the brokers they don't have direct connectivity to, or their non-focused markets. If they're a US-based manager focusing primarily in the US, we're handling a lot of the international. And so again, I think the ease of engaging the trading front on outsourcing is very simple. As I said, it's a Bloomberg fixed connection, it's a fixed connection in a Bloomberg chat room, or a chat room to a trading desk, and you're off and running.
Okay. Gerard, what would you say there? Where would you draw the line?
I think I'd build on that point, and in each case it's situational. So I think that you've got to work together in a sense of partnership, and you've got to take a look at the entire spectrum of activity, the full life cycle of the trade, and decide individually where you want to draw that line. And in certain places where, say, a hedge fund has got a relationship with the prime broker, that life cycle will be different to, say, a long-only fund where they may actually want the benefits of a full trade matching, clearing and settlement life cycle delivered by an execution partner. And then that reduces the number of interaction points and the risks and costs of interaction with custodians and administrators down the line as well. So I think in each of the cases, we would always recommend that decision makers looking at outsourcing take a look first at how much they want to outsource. May well decide, hey, look, we are very good at trading the US market and we've got people sitting in seats in US time zones. Therefore, we'll take a look at Asia Pacific or European regional outsourcing. And then just in each case, just work through the life cycle of the trade and the level of activity that you want to do yourself, and then always do that on the basis of, does this add value to what I need to deliver back to my end investors?
Okay. Jeff Metzger, would you add something here?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff, number one, kind of danced around the subject of security. I think when firms look at outsourcing, one of the fears is that if they outsource their infrastructure, that's going to compromise in some way the level of security they can have, just because humans are humans and are worried if they have a loss of control. I think part that is a conversation you should have with any of the vendor partners you're looking at outsourcing your infrastructure to. But oftentimes, security is as good, if not better, than if you did yourself. As an example, TNS, our network also carries payments processing traffic. So we have to implement PCI DDS compliance and certification protocols, which are a higher level of security than you oftentimes see in our industry. So, it's definitely a conversation you want to have, but it's not necessarily the case that outsourcing automatically means compromising security. Other than that, I just echo what Gerard said. I think the best approach is look at the aspects of your infrastructure that truly differentiate, truly add value. Those maybe are good, not the place to start if you're looking at outsourcing, but everything else certainly should be on the table.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Let's run another poll question here. It is, what are the challenges of transitioning to an outsourced trading infrastructure at your organization? And this time you can tick as many of the boxes as are appropriate to your organization. So while you do that and tick the boxes, let me come back to Jeff Levine to talk about the challenges of transitioning to third-party vendors. We've heard a lot about the reasons to do it, but where lie the challenges?
Well, I think the main challenges are change in itself, right? I think that's whether you're switching technology vendors, whether you're switching execution style or the broker you're executing through, there's work to be done. And if you're an existing firm that's managing a portfolio on a day-to-day basis, that transition is very hard to pull off, without a lot of work internally. And so I think that work falls on somebody. And normally when that transition takes place, it's falling on kind of the top of the firm, the COO level, the CFO level. And so I think I don't know anyone that really loves change. I think that trying to engage new providers is probably the biggest challenge. And I think that, it's also it's a trust factor. If you're going from a platform where all of your trading and operations are handled internally, and now you're engaging outside vendors, there's a significant amount of trust in that organization. You're relying on another firm now. I think between that and the actual work itself, the filling out of paperwork, the learning a new system, those are the biggest hurdles. And in some cases, there isn't really an option, right? They have to make the change. It's just embracing it and putting the work in to trust the folks and learn how to use the new systems. But those are the highest hurdles, I would say, from making a change if you're an existing firm looking to transition to outsourcing. Okay,
Gerard, what would you say there?
Yeah, I think that that's true. I think that one of the most important things to do, and one of the challenges to overcome, is to have a proper understanding of effectively what your own influence heat map looks like. There aren't that many organizations left in 2022 where somebody senior can just go in and say, we're doing this because I want to do it. So there's always a stakeholder influencing. There's always influential people, the subject matter experts that I think you've got to take with you. And I think it's one of the things that we would always look to do is to say, hey, look, have you engaged properly with everybody that you need to bring on this journey with you? If you want to contemplate outsourcing this function that you previously did yourself, have you engaged with the stakeholders internally who own it, live it, breathe it every day? And then, in doing that, you want to be working with a partner, with somebody that you can know and understand and knows and understands your business, so that your chosen provider delivers an ability to help, to Jeff's point, to help effect that change with you, so that it's not simply, the old school consulting model of bringing in a big system application, you're getting it no matter what, just learn to use it. But in actual fact, that it's a journey that you've gone through, where you've gone, okay, these are the reasons why we're doing it. I understand these. These are the benefits that will be delivered back to you. Because ultimately, to Jeff's point, I think you end up at each stage, you've got to tell people what's in this change for me. And if that is a tangible, beneficial outcome for them, the journey and the transition gets easier.
Okay, fine. Thank you indeed. And may we see the poll results, please? Thank you very much indeed. Jeff Levine, would you like to comment on these?
Well, I think that for the most part, I think Gerard covered it. It's usually the stakeholder making the decision is likely the top the person inside of that firm. I think that's usually a CIO, COO driven decision. I would imagine that winning management buy-in and budget, in many cases, I don't think there's significant budget from the trading side. There's definitely an increase in trading costs from outsourcing, but depending on how you manage that, I think that can be mitigated. I think the next two spots, complex in-house trading infrastructure, is a bit more of what we were chatting about. Lack of confidence in outsourced solutions goes back to that trust element that I had mentioned. I think most firms, when engaging outsourced firms, have already made their mind up that there are cost efficiencies in making this switch to an outsourced solution. But I would say, listen, from my perspective, point 2 and point 3, the 50% votes of complex in-house trading infrastructure and learning new platforms, and then a lack of confidence in outsourced solutions, is more of what we see on the trading side of things. But I definitely appreciate the first initial need of having buy-in from management. I just think in most cases, by the time we're brought into the conversation, managers, the internal management of that firm has already made that decision to transition to outsourcing, and it's in an effort to hopefully reduce internal costs and hopefully pick up scale.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much indeed. And coming back to you, Gerard, and looking at some solutions to these challenges, which we have talked about, particularly the softer ones, please would you provide some sort of step-by-step guidance on how practitioners can resolve the challenges? Perhaps we'll skip the management buy-in because we've said quite a bit about that.
Yes.
Perhaps some of the practicalities in terms of connectivity, existing infrastructure, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and again, each of those is situational. I think one of the biggest points of resistance to outsourcing in the past was the age-old rubric in the industry that portfolio managers needed their trading expertise sitting right beside them all day, every day. Well, the pandemic dealt with that. Nobody was able to do that for the best part of a couple of years. And what that meant is that people effectively built trust through a remote solution because they had a remote solution functioning perfectly effectively for them. And in fact, in kind of March 2020, April 2020, when everybody was working remotely, it was record levels of trading volume going through these sorts of systems. So that one has died through events, I think. So there's that building trust through capability. There's assessing the speed of the value delivery that you're after versus the scale of the change required to deliver it. And I think that comes back to the point that we were discussing earlier, is that you've got to involve the right level of internal experts early enough in order that you can start to chunk out what that delivery looks like. And I think it is possible that you do the numbers analysis, you work out, you work out and you negotiate execution commission rates that are perhaps sharper in different markets than you were able to deliver yourself, simply because you're working with a partner who's got global scale and reach and doesn't need to add additional capability or resources to deliver a solution to you as an individual member of their family of firms that they work with. But alongside that, I think a way of doing it in a step-by-step fashion is effectively it's the age-old thing. Try it, see what works, see what doesn't work. start to send more and more orders to the desk, work out what the desk can deliver back for you, and then use that as stepping stones to get to a final end solution that doesn't have to be big bang, as you said earlier, Sarah.
Okay, Jeff Metzger, what would you say there in terms of a step-by-step way of getting this right?
Yeah, I mean, I think Gerard hit on the key points there. It's really, to me, it falls into 3 buckets. You got to know your business, you got to know your options, and you got to know your partner, right? And knowing your business speaks to a lot of the management buy-in topic that we've already covered. In terms of understanding your options, and looking at complexity, one thing I'd mention again is that, businesses have core competencies. They have things they should be and are able to devote their time to. And one of them is looking at, evolving technologies and new offerings that are being brought to market. So even if you have a complex infrastructure or seemingly complex infrastructure, it could be that there are enabling technologies, new products, new solutions that have come to market that may allow that to be simplified or even obviated. And to a large extent, that's the role that an MSP or an outsourced partner can serve, right? It's that core competency there is researching and deploying technology. So it could be that your MSP could inform you of some solutions that you weren't previously aware that can maybe reduce that complexity or solve it. Outside of that, like Gerard said, I think you fire bullets before you fire cannonballs, right? Try it out, dabble in it, until you can get a level of comfort, both for the teams that are directly infected, but also for that management team. And from there, it comes down to trust, like Gerard said. Trust has to be earned. It's got to be built out, and that's probably one of the better ways to go about it.
Okay, thank you all very much indeed. Let's take a short break for some audience questions. I have quite a few here, and I'm going to come to you first, Gerard, if I may, with this one. And it says, what savings in time, money, or risk can you save in the middle and back office by outsourcing on a one-to-many basis?
So again, that would be it would be situational. It would depend on the extent to which you have outsourced. I think it's fair to say that across the industry, the middle and back office outsourcing journey is now into, there's not many firms that need to start from scratch. It's now into replacement cycles, technology upgrades, technology replacements, that sort of thing. But I think if you are an asset manager and you take a full life cycle view of everything required to deliver a return for you, to earn a return for you, and therefore deliver a return for your underlying investors, I think to start at the very start and then work through every step of that life cycle and work out who best delivers that value for me is the only way to go about it. So I think that's where you start to see better data pour down into the middle and back office, fewer errors. If trade matching, clearing, and settlement is done in the same place as trading, error rates further down will drop away. Then you load in things like foreign exchange dealing and things like that. And you just start to have a much cleaner, simpler, and more efficient pipe of life cycle all the way through effectively through the data heritage that you need in order to make sure that the numbers you started with at the top of the life cycle are the numbers that match down the bottom of the life cycle.
Okay, Jeff, would you like to add to that? Nope.
No notes.
Okay. Jeff Levine, I think this could be one for you. It says, what is your opinion on outsourced trading businesses that have grown out of prime brokers or sell-side desks? Will the business over time center around independent providers only? Gosh.
Well, I think the first thing that's important to remember is that every outsourced trading firm is a sell-side desk. There's a misnomer that there is independent firms that aren't a sell-side desk, and that's incorrect. I think we've seen demand from some of the larger firms that have established outsourced platforms out of their prime services based on internal need, right? I think that they see the benefit of that business area and it's a potential growth area for their firm. I think that the key element here is understanding what you're engaging. There's reasons why those major prime brokers that are offering outsourcing have been successful, and it's because their clients come at it from a different angle, whether it's they custody at that firm and they're getting the benefits of the outsourced trading services there. But I think that what you really want to do is you want to look at as many outsourced firms and really understand the business you're engaging. does the firm you're engaging commit capital? Do they have a proprietary trading desk? I'd want to know that if I was sending every one of my trades to a firm, whether they had the capability of potentially using my trade data or potentially proprietarily trade around my orders. But I do think independent firms come at this very focused on outsourcing. I don't know that Jones could technically be considered independent because we have a legacy core business that was what our firm was founded on. We also have a capital markets business and a derivatives business, but Jones is an agency platform. We don't have proprietary traders. So I don't know where we would fall in that group, but I would say that I think that the firms that are thinking ahead of the next phases for outsourcing, which in many cases, machine learning, AI, automation, these are the next steps for us, because what we're trying to deliver is the best possible execution, right? Our challenge is best execution and achieving broker budgets and making sure that our managers are aware of what's going on in their names, the news, the flows, the street calls. And so I think there's room for everybody in this industry, but I think that we all have to keep evolving and keep making changes to all of our businesses to make our businesses more efficient and more performance minded for our managers. So I think there's room for everybody is the answer.
Okay.
Sarah, can I just pick up on one of the points in there? Because I think Jeff makes a very good point there around the appetite for conflicts of interest. And I think that you've got to be sure that you've got the appetite for dealing with firms that say have a central risk book or they do proprietary trading of themselves. You've got to satisfy yourself on your side of the handshake that that's okay with you and with your underlying investors. So I think that that's one of the things that and Jeff alluded to it. If you are contemplating a relationship with and you've got yourself a short list of potential partners for outsourced execution, one of the things that should be very high on your list of considerations is what your appetite is for conflicts of interest.
Okay, interesting. Thank you very much indeed. And Jeff Metzger, coming to you. And this one asks, where are the costs of transitions to outsourced trading infrastructure? We talked about cost savings, but there's obviously some upfront spending. Where are those costs?
Yeah, I mean, for a transition to be successful, or the most successful transitions, I should say, have the most time spent in the planning phase ahead of actually making the cutover, which typically when you see people making the decision to outsource, it is driven by cost savings. You know, there's other benefits like we talked about, but at the end of the day, it's cost savings. And often the budgetary minded folks that are driving the decision are very eager to realize those cost savings. So you'll see time kind of skipped or skimped on in the planning phase. Short circuit, you know, that costs time and money to do it. I would say that if you short circuit that, you're often going to see that the costs you spend much more than you would have if you had planned up front on the back end of it, if you don't go through that planning exercise. You know, measure twice, cut once. I think that's the best way to minimize at least the cost on the back end by spending a little more time on the front end.
Okay, Jeff or sorry, I've lost it. Jeff or Jared, would you like to comment on that? As practitioners, where do you see the cost when you're actually doing this? The upfront
I think the one thing I could add to it is there's a perception that when you engage an outsourcer, and I think Gerard would agree, there's an outsourced fee, unless you're going to go to a subscription based where we potentially charge on a monthly basis, where we're not charging transactional, which is, I think, harder for all of us to really put together a proposal on that side. And so for us, there's a perception that if I'm paying an outsourcer some amount of commission per share, my commission rate goes higher. But I think that outside of commissions, which is where we get paid, there are no real fees associated with what we do. But I will say, when we've seen mature managers that have come in with an existing trading desk that they might be transitioning away from, the first thing we look at is their technology front end, because a lot of these firms that have been in business for 5, 10, 20 years have an outdated technology stack. And so trying to get that sorted first, because I think the first thing you can do is clean up the technology front end where there could be actually cost savings, and you can make your front end more efficient. And then getting back to the actual outsourced commission, like I think that from my view, we're able to help managers, I think, clean up their tail of their commission budget. And also, I think we can be a bit more competitive with firms on rates for our managers, where there isn't necessarily an uptick in overall commission budget to engage an outsourcer. I think we can in some ways do it more efficiently. But I think that what we're also forgetting, and I've said it before, there's a big difference when it comes to good quality execution performance and poor performance. We like to look at commission rates, and those rates are anywhere from, from a gross perspective, anywhere from a half a penny to 3-4 cents a share. If you're trading small cap and you're quite active in small cap, you can miss VWAP and you can miss arrival price by 10, 20, 30 cents. And so delivering good quality execution performance should more than offset the perceived execution costs that go up with outsourcing.
Okay.
I agree. And I think that in there, you've got to take a look at the total costs of execution. It's not, you can't just look at the sticker price at the specific time the stock was traded. You've got to look at the total costs of the execution. So you've got to be in a position where you properly understand best execution and TCA. And in doing so, that you've got people on your side of the handshake who can understand the data, interrogate the data, and interrogate the people that you've got doing the trading for them in the outsourced relationship. And therefore, you've worked up a partnership based on, righto, if you're going to send me this data, I'm going to look at it and I'm going to come back to you, and I'm going to expect you to explain why you have traded in that manner against those benchmarks at that time. And that's effectively what best execution and TCA was looking to deliver.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, Jeff Metzger. Coming back to you, well, here's one for you. It says, do asset managers lose market insights when outsourcing? That's a concern some people have.
Well, I'll be honest, I think that might be a better question for Gerard or Jeff. One.
Okay.
So real world experience of some case studies that we've had. So there's two things at play. One, the main one is, funnily enough, market color as it feeds back onto a desk is often governed by the dollar amount of commission paid across that relationship over time. So if you've outsourced your execution to somebody and the underlying broker knows that as a consequence, they're not just dealing with asset management firm number one, but they're actually dealing with the potential scale of a much larger pool of liquidity that may well be delivered across to them in much larger chunks than was possible from fund manager A. We've actually seen the relationship improve because there's no dollar tension attached to the relationship anymore. So there's a tacit understanding, and in some cases a disclosed understanding where trades are done on a directed order basis. So an underlying broker, a minority broker, somebody like that, knows that they will be part of a much bigger pipe of liquidity than was the case in the first place. So it's not necessarily the case, it doesn't have to be the case, that the relationship goes stale. It may actually broaden, and as a consequence, Sally knows that she's only getting a lot more flow from, say, Jones Trading or Northern Trust Securities as a consequence of Sarah introducing them 10 months ago.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got one last one. This one is for you, Jeff Metzger, and it says, where would the panel suggest is a good start for outsourcing? Where, when you're talking to potential clients, where's a good place to start?
So I would say, again, looking at it from the infrastructure provider perspective, from an MSP perspective, the ideal place to start it would be if you're entering into a new market. It's a greenfield build, so you're not dealing with legacy complexity, stuff like that. It's also where you see some of the bigger benefits of working with an MSP, and that's namely in the time to market, not only just from building the infrastructure itself, but also, I'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute, but there's a lot of hard-won knowledge and research you have to do about that new market, understanding the rules and regulations, the options, the offerings, the vendors that are available. I think that's the place where MSPs are best positioned to kind of fast track that process, would be, entering a new market. Not everybody's going to enter a new market, so that's not always an option for people. Other than that, I would say, as I mentioned earlier, the two things you do are, one, look at your highest line item costs, and just, phone calls are free. Give us a call and we can talk through and see what can be done from a cost savings or complexity reduction perspective for that line item. And then also, again, looking at what is the most important, what adds value in the infrastructure you have today. That maybe is the last thing you want on your list, the things that differentiate you, the things that are critically important. But the things at the bottom of that list, that's a place where you can start experimenting and get comfort and kind of see some of these proof points we've been talking bear out.
Okay, Okay, great. Thank you indeed for your questions to our audience, and thank you to our speakers for their answers. And back to my questions, and coming first to Jeff Mesker. How can firms achieve optimal third-party relationship management? We've talked a lot about this, the handshake, all the rest of it, but what does it look like when you have to write it down on a piece of paper?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have talked a lot about trust, and that's where things start. And trust, I think it needs to be demonstrated, but I think it also can just start by having conversations. Something I've seen too often, at least in our world, is it's almost like sometimes people are afraid to push too hard on asking tough, pointed questions or providing critical feedback. Everybody wants to get along and be nice, but I think that has knock-on effects, and there's a tail effect where maybe that prevents that trust from being built. So I would say, this is our job. You're not going to insult us if you ask tough questions or tell us when you're unhappy. That just makes it easier for us to react and adjust and do our job better. Other than that, I think we talked about the two other things. It's just understanding where to start. And it's a lot of the items I just covered. It's a new market when possible, but other than that, looking for the biggest wins.
Okay, Jeff, Levine, what would you add there in terms of building a good relationship?
But I think starting with determining the pain points you're trying to solve for, and really understanding what it is you're trying to potentially outsource, and then spending ample time during that exploration phase to really reach out and engage as many service providers in that particular area, and not only learn about their business, talk to the people, potentially even go visit their offices, sit on their desk. We welcome that. We want you to, it's not a mystery here. We want you to sit down and see what we do, who you're engaging at our firm. And then I think what's also important, we haven't really talked about it, talk to client references. What are their thoughts? I think that, for managers that are sitting in seats looking to potentially make a change, there's likely a COO or a CIO sitting here at Jones as an active manager that was that client 2 years ago that can talk about their experiences and maybe mistakes they made and the things that they did that were smart and maybe things that they would have done differently. And so I think taking time and not rushing a decision, I think, is the most important thing, because it's a cumbersome undertaking. Once you decide to go down this road in terms of transitioning to an outsourced vendor, and you want to make sure you've spent enough time exploring and making the right decision as to who that partner is going to be for you.
Okay, and what about sort of metrics, SLAs, this kind of thing? Is this a great part of it? Yeah, Jared is nodding.
Yes, it is. It's critical. You've got to establish. You've got to put exactly as Jeff said, you've got to put the work into establishing the partnership, and that takes time. That partnership's got to be based on clear roles and responsibilities and key metrics. You should know and understand the metrics that you're aiming to deliver out of it. And then the other thing that people often forget about, you've got to govern it effectively. You've got to know and understand who's responsible for the relationship, who manages the relationship, what the compliance and oversight and governance actually looks like within that relationship, and where all of those handshakes are as well. So we would always encourage, as I'm sure Jeff would, you've got to understand the numbers. If you are aiming at more ability to trade in different markets, measure that. If you're aiming at a lower total cost of execution and an improved best execution outcome, measure it.
Okay, you can't measure it, you can't know anything about it. Fair enough. Okay, I think we have time for one final poll question this time. What extent of business and operational benefits does your organization gain, or would it expect to gain from implementing outsourced trading infrastructure? So while you answer the question, again, you can tick as many boxes as are appropriate. Let me ask Jared how he sees the business and operational benefits of implementing outsourced trading infrastructure.
I think the key benefit that we've had, and to Jeff's point, when we speak to reference clients or people that we use as reference clients, when a firm comes to us and talks about integrated trading, as we refer to it, the one that they always mention first is simplicity and efficiency, that allows them more time. And in actual fact, we've got real live examples of where firms have, in the drive towards focusing on what they're paid for, managing money and capturing alpha, they've actually redeployed some of the people who were previously engaged in trading to do other things that inside the asset manager, investment manager firm that were not done as well as they could have been while trading was still in the remit of things that they did. So that means that they've improved the simplicity and the efficiency. They've put in place a fully functioning working partnership with an organization. And then the key one is governance and oversight. They've moved from the point of needing to worry about the errors on a trade in the Taiwanese market last night to one where they just ring up and understand what happened from an outsourced service partner. And therefore their relationship with that partner delivers them a better underlying outcome than having somebody sweating at 2:00 in the morning, New York time, about what happened in the Taiwanese market.
Okay. Jeff Levine, what benefits do you see coming out of outsourcing here?
Well, I think that the first thing is scale, whether it comes from the trading side or the middle office side. And we don't employ one person. We have teams of people here. There's redundancy here every day. You're not worried about filling in vacation days. You're not worried about being shorthanded. We also cover the globe, right? So we have operational staff here 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. We have a trading team here 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. And so I think that the primary thing is scale. And I think also that listen, there's benefits to having an outsourcer handling your trading, and the fact that we take quite a bit of responsibility, right? If we make a mistake, we have an error account here. Most internal managers don't have that benefit. That's why they're constantly worried about insurance policies for errors. So I think you pick up also the benefit of offlying or laying off the responsibility of potential mistakes made by your trader. And so I think that in addition to what I've said earlier with, I think we deliver alpha. I think that's why you engage us, because we're the best at trading. That's why you engage outsourced trading. But we're also well-staffed when it comes to support, and we're well-staffed when it comes to trading. And in order to replicate what we do here and what we're offering clients on day one, you would have to hire a significant staff, which this is the main reason why firms are engaging outsourcers to begin with, because they're trying to, I think, minimize to some degree the head count and keep staffing at a reasonable number internally.
Okay, Jeff Metzger, over to you. But at the same time, could we see the poll results? And if you'd like to comment up on those, Jeff, as we go along, they may agree with your thoughts or completely not. So please do share your thoughts.
I think it matches up exactly with what we said, right? I think that the operational benefits, there's not a lot of, I don't think most managers really enjoy spending money on operations staff, right? There's no alpha there. These people are fixing trade problems. You have to have sound operations, but there's nothing delivering alpha from the operations side of the business. The business benefits are what we just covered. We obviously are offering expertise and scale. Those are the two big things. And so I can tell you, every time we engage a prospect, they want to make sure that they're going to have a person to reach out to whenever they have an issue. And to be honest with you, I think when firms are doing outsourced trading correctly, there shouldn't be any outreach. We should be able to get involved and fix problems before our managers even know that there is a problem. And so I think the polls were answered quite correctly in the fact that, yes, operational benefits matter, and there are significant business benefits from making this decision and to outsource, because instead of getting the visibility on the handful of brokers that you engage directly, if a trader is doing their job right, they are hustling and they're finding information out from the entire scope of the market and delivering that information and understanding what the portfolio managers and analysts at that firm want to hear and see. And so I think that the folks here have covered this pretty well.
Okay. Jeff Metzger, let me come to you in terms of your thoughts on benefits and those kind of poll results. When you're out and about and talking to different people, what are they looking for and what do they expect?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jordan, Jeff, one nailed it, and I think it's reflected in the poll results. The operational benefits are, profound, significant, as the poll said. I think, again, from an MSP perspective and looking at TNS, I think everybody will tell you that they have global coverage, right? That's table stakes. But I think one thing that's worth, when you build that trust with the MSP, one thing worth digging into is the quality of that global coverage, right? It's not just, is there one group of people sitting in one location that's covering the entire globe 24/7, or do they have people in region directly embedded in the locations where the exchange is, where the other vendor partners are, where the brokers are, so that they can work in that time zone, speaking the same language, sharing the same culture. And at least for our business, we found that has a significant impact in terms of the quality and speed of responsiveness when we're investigating issues or we're dealing with clients.
Okay, that's great. And coming to our final item in today's webinar, I'd like to ask all our speakers to offer some advice for practitioners working with or towards outsourced trading infrastructure. We've talked a lot about things that people could be doing. Let's sum that up, and let me come first to you, Jeff Mesker, if I may, and you tell us what advice you would provide.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've touched on all of this at this point, but for me, it's build that trusted relationship, and it starts on day one by challenging the provider you're working with, having serious and direct conversations, and don't be shy about pushing back, giving feedback, good or bad, especially not the bad. That helps build that trusting relationship. When possible, start with a new market, or a area of the business that's less mission critical, because that's a way to get comfort, in the outsource model, low risk approach, and focus on the big wins, especially if you're looking at it from a cost savings perspective. At least again from the MSP space, I think rank sort your spend, start with the biggest line item, and just let's have a conversation. And oftentimes there are significant cost savings to be had.
Okay, thank you, Jeff Levine. What advice would you give us?
I think communication is paramount here, right? There's a stakeholder that's likely making this decision at the fund, but there's a lot of internal folks that are going to be impacted for the decision, right? If you are the COO making the decision, your CIO is going to be impacted because they're engaging in an entirely different team for their day-to-day job. So making sure that their needs are met and identifying what those needs are so the outsourcer can properly service that CIO. Really identifying what that client needs from an operational workflow is important. So I think what's paramount is the better you communicate with your outsourced vendor, no matter where it is, whether it's technology or middle office or trading, the better the communication, the more likely that the outsourcer can deliver what that client is looking for. We definitely don't have any mind reading capabilities on our side here. When clients can come out and voice what it is they're trying to solve for, what it is they need to help improve their businesses, we have a better shot at delivering that end result. And so I think the key thing is being thorough, canvassing the marketplace, understanding kind of what it is you're trying to potentially outsource. And then once you've found that partner, really communicating well so that they can deliver the service that you need, because it's a very customizable service that we're offering, whether it's middle office technology or trading. And we want to make sure that we deliver the experience that manager wants, not one that we deliver to a different manager. We want to deliver what that manager needs. So communication is key.
Okay, thank you. And Gerard, some last words from you, please.
So I think you've got to understand your motivation for contemplating this change and understand it properly. You've got to understand, and in doing that, you've got to understand exactly what problem you're looking to solve by contemplating outsourcing more parts of the functions and activities that you carry out. And in doing that, you've got to search for a partner that can help you affect change and can help you affect change across a much broader life cycle than just the problem you're looking to solve at the moment. So you're looking to find a partner that you can help you in the long term. And in doing that, you've got to commit to that partnership approach.
Okay. Thank you, Gerard, and thank you to all our speakers for sharing their expertise and experience. Thank you too to TNS for sponsoring today's webinar. Before we close, just a few 18 Group items that may be of interest to you. If you scroll down your screen to additional options, you can register for our upcoming webinars on the challenges and potential of data marketplaces and market data in the cloud. You can also take a look at A-Team Connect, a powerful and immersive professional platform that you can use for your own webinars and events. That said, that's it for today. So thank you again to Jeff Mesker, Jeff Levine, and Gerard. And thank you to all of you who've taken part in the webinar. Please complete our feedback form, as we're always keen to hear your views and improve our products. Meantime, thanks again and goodbye.